In recent years, avocados have become synonymous of millennial culture. Instagram is filled with photos of stylish avocado-dressed grain bowls. Every hipster cafe around features avocado toast on their menu. There's even small, cute cartoons of avocados that are starting to decorate t-shirts. It's also seen as a healthy and sustainable food alternative for those who are trying to reduce their meat consumption. So it's definitely worth taking a deeper look into the world of avocados, especially when we learn that in 2016, avocado production and expansion actually accounted for 98% of deforestation in Mexico. But we'll get back to that. Indigenous to Central and South America, avocado has actually been a tremendously important food staple in these regions. The word avocado in itself actually comes from the Spanish word aguacate, which itself comes from the word in Aztec that I can't pronounce, but is written on the screen. So there's a lot of history in that food, in that fruit, and it's really important to understand how it's tied back to this region. So very important food staple. And this video is not about shaming avocado in itself. Avocado is a great source of oleic acid, of vitamin B, C, and E, and also potassium. So in itself, it's a great food to eat. But today, the way it's grown is completely unsustainable, and the way it's shipped. So this is the subject of today's video. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Anucha. I'm an environmental photographer and videographer, and today I'm here to myth bust avocados. So let's get right into it. So before we dive in the deep of the mystery of why avocado and avocado farming today is quite unsustainable, I just want to put a little bit of history background in front of us. So following the colonization of America, the American continent, by the Europeans, we had sort of new foods entering Europe that were never seen before. For example, we had chocolate. So chocolate came from the Americas. We had potatoes, and avocado made sort of a similar debut. So avocado was never heard of before the colonization. Was never heard of in Europe before the colonization of the Americas. Following that event, avocados starting, getting some steam, and people in Indonesia actually started cultivating it, as well as in India. And although avocados are grown on other continents now, they need a really stable environment for growing. So they're very susceptible to droughts, to winds, or to change in soil matter. So they're quite a fragile tree, actually. And in case you didn't know, avocados grow on tree and they look like that. But that goes to say that although they are grown in other places, South America and Central America are still the largest exporters. And of those, Mexico, the country of Mexico, is the largest exporter of avocado in the world and producer. Today, we see that the demand for avocado has skyrocketed like never seen before. Everyone and their mother wants an avocado on their breakfast plate. So let's put some numbers on that. So because of the increased demand, especially from the global north, the industry has been steadily growing and is actually worth over $5.6 billion annually today. And so much so that today avocados are actually often referred to as green gold. So they've been coined as a sort of green gold because they're so valuable and because everyone wants avocados. Bit of a mind-blowing statistic, but in the United States, over the past 20 years, consumption has rose by 440% for avocados. So people are, asking for avocados 440% more than they did 20 years ago. So it really is a booming market at the moment. And today, the US has become one of the largest importer of Mexican avocados, with 83 to 93% of its fresh avocados actually coming directly from Mexico. All right, so now that we've sort of covered the historical basis and what is happening right now with the increased demand for avocados in the global north, and especially in the United States, I do want to jump in the heart of the subject, and it is, revealing why avocado production is highly unsustainable as it is right now, and why I want to encourage you to really think before you buy avocados from Mexico in the future. So let's get right into the heart of that subject. Okay, so in terms of growing avocados in Mexico, there's about 6 really big problematics that are making avocados today, avocado production in Mexico, highly unsustainable. And the first one is that it's extremely energy intensive. So often when you want to ship these avocados to the United States, you're shipping them when they're not ripe, and you have to keep them that way until they get on the market and they get shelved. And so what you do is you hire trucks or planes which have sort of refrigerant systems where you can keep the avocados cool, and that is extremely energy costly. So that's the reason number one, but that's true of bananas, that's true of many other things. So I wouldn't say that's the main focus of my argument. The second one is that avocado are highly profitable, so people wanted to grow more of them. So what they've done in Mexico is that they've created monoculture with really high fertilizer inputs and agrochemical inputs. And although in that case, it's not necessarily bad for your health personally, that's something that I want to highlight, because avocados actually don't retain very much pesticide when they're sprayed because of their rough skin. It is really detrimental to our planet. So spraying pesticides and herbicides on soils really degrade them highly. It also makes superbugs. I mean, it's just bad practice. Agrochemical industry today has really driven a lot of the biodiversity loss that we've seen. So it's definitely not something that's encouraged. There's not many avocados that are grown organic in Mexico as it stands. So I would say that's the second big problematic. The third one is water scarcity. So avocado production has a very strong impact on hydrology. And what I mean is that avocado's trees consume 4 to 5 times more water than the native fir of the region or the pine tree. So they're really jeopardizing water availability, both for these species, but also for the humans in that regions, which are finding that their forests are drying up and their springs are drying up, so they don't have access to clean water anymore. So that is a very important issue. But right now I'm getting to the fourth topic and the fourth reason why I think avocados are really unsustainable. And that is definitely one that I want to highlight. So it's talking about, unfortunately, deforestation and how avocado production is actually driving deforestation in Mexico and in other parts of Central and South America. So the number that I read you earlier was that in 2016, avocado production and expansion accounted for 98% of deforestation in Mexico. I mean, that's just a huge number. There's been an increase in temperature unevenness and erratic rainstorm in the area, and we can actually already notice the effects of deforestation. The point of forests is to stabilize the soil and to stabilize the climate. So the less trees you have, the more monocultures you have, the more sort of erratic temperature patterns and weather patterns you'll encounter. And although you could argue that avocado trees are trees, they have to be grown on monocultures. So you're planting one tree and then you're planting the next and then you're planting the next, and they're quite spaced out between them because you want space for them to grow. But it looks nothing like a full forest that can sequester carbon as much as these monocultures do. So this is really problematic. And of course, I mean, not even talking about biodiversity here, just really talking about density of tree and carbon sequestration. Michoacan in Mexico is the main region that produces avocados, and that's the one that's been suffering the most from deforestation. And it's not only bad for the forest, but the region of Michoacan is very particular for one reason. It's because it attracts monarch butterflies and the monarch butterfly migration. So if you've ever heard of it or never heard of it, the monarch butterfly migration is one of the biggest migration events in the world and is the biggest migration insect event in the world. And that means that millions and millions of butterflies every winter come back to the region of Michoacan, and they come as far as from Canada and all throughout the state, and they come spend the winter in Mexico to be warm and to not freeze to death. And so there's millions and millions of monarchs that go from, they can go as far as 3,000 miles to come to that one place. And I mean, we're talking about one single butterfly that's making this immense, crazy journey. And they show up in Michoacan, and what they do is that they overwinter on very specific trees, and these trees are called firs. And so these trees are found only in Michoacan, and they only come to that specific forest. And so the deforestation for avocado plantation has been influencing the survival of monarchs very negatively, obviously. There's been a drop in population of about 80% in the past 2 decades of monarch butterflies, and more than just losing butterflies, we're really sort of losing a biological heritage here. And avocados have been driving this problem. So that's another reason why I don't encourage you to buy avocados from Mexico if you're based in the States. It's because it is a reason for deforestation, and it's a reason for biodiversity loss and the loss of the monarch butterfly populations. The last point that I'd like to raise is food security. So the increase in production has had sort of a negative impact on the local food security. And we could think to ourselves, okay, more people want avocados, so there's more money into it, and so people are making more money. But the fact is that the booming global demand is causing prices to rise in the region. And it's become difficult for locals to actually have access to these food staples that have been part of their diets for centuries and centuries, and all of a sudden they're too expensive for them to afford. So that's sort of a paradox in itself. And I think this story even further complicates because there's a very strong presence of drug cartels in the central region of Michoacan, which produces 80% of Mexican avocados. So you have drug cartels that are getting involved in this green gold business and that want their share. So Michoacan has actually become a very dangerous place to be for environmentalists and for people who fight for the forest. And so that obviously is another factor for instability and local instability. So again, another problematic added to the thing. So now that I've sort of laid down the problematic of, avocados coming from Mexico to be shipped to the US and consumed in the US, I think it's important to talk about solutions. So what can be done about this? I think at the global level, there needs to be obviously more regulations. There needs to be a certification that proves that avocados are not coming from deforestation, not coming from drug money, and all of that. So certification is key, but I think also there needs to be a pressure from the consumers. So consumers in the US or in France or anywhere else in the world where Mexican avocados are being shipped, and just understanding that our eating habits are actually influencing places that are very, very far away from our homes and from our daily life. So having more mindfulness when we consume products, and especially food products, and really thinking where these foods have come from and what sort of impact they have for the local culture. So I'm definitely encouraging you to eat less avocado. I know that sucks, but it's just a reality of our world, and sometimes we do need to take some sacrifices for the earth if we do care about these things. So it's not really about completely boycotting the system, because that also has some effects on the local population, but is definitely reducing our consumption. So we're lowering the consumption levels and showing with our disapproval that something is wrong and that something must change. And always prioritizing something that's organic and fair trade is really important, because you're putting your money where it matters and you're showing that you care about these things. And I think that incentivizes companies and farmers to really invest themselves in getting these labels and having fair trade agreements. So that's one way to get out of it. Not always the brightest, with environmental news, it's always sort of gloomy at some point, but there's always solutions, and it just comes to the individual taking decisions that are both good for them and for the planet. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you like that sort of content, and I will catch you in the next upload.